see if I can turn it.
It has to be here first and then go back there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I put it like this, can you see it?
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. If it's not right for me, I got my phone anyway, so.
It's too small too, but we'll try.
More what?
The woods are small, but we'll try. I can
Yeah.
see. Okay.
Please repeat. Saryaniyamya yatayo yama karta hitim. Saryaniyamya yatayo yama karta hitim. Jayu Swarat Iva Dipana Karnitram Indraha Jayu Swarat Iva Dipana Karnitram Indriya Jayu Swarat Iva Nipana Kanitram Indriya
What is it? Kanitram?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
The K is not saying very well. Okay, Indra.
Indraha is
Is
a
that ha? Is the H?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jayu Swarat Iva Nipana Kanitram Indriya
Santriyanyam yayatayo yamakarta hetim. Karta hetim. Jayu swaradi vanipana kani tramindra.
Jayu Sarvasad Eva Nimpana Kunitram Indraha
Jayu
Very brave. And
Anybody else? Please repeat. Sadriyak Artificial mental speculation or meditation.
artificial mental speculation or meditation.
Niyamya Controlling. Yataya The mystics. Yama Karta Hitim The process of spiritual culture. Jayu are given up. Swarat fully independent. Eva as. Nipana well. Kanitram trouble for digging. Indraha the controlling demigod supplying rains. Translation. Please repeat. In such a transcendental state, there is no need of artificial control of the mind. Mental speculation or meditation. As performed by the Gyanis and Yogis. One gives up such processes
One gives up such processes
as the heavenly King Indra
as the heavenly King
forgoes the trouble of digging a well.
Forgoes the trouble of digging a well.
Translation: in such a transcendental state, there is no need of artificial control of the mind, mental speculation, or meditation, as performed by the jnanis and yogis. One gives up such processes as the heavenly King Indra forgoes the trouble of digging a well. I just want to reread the previous verse since they're connected. It refers to the transcendental state in the previous verse. I'll just reread text number 47. What is realized as the absolute Brahman is full of unlimited bliss without grief. That is certainly the ultimate phase of the Supreme Enjoyer, Personality of Godhead. He is eternally void of all disturbances and fearless. He is complete consciousness as opposed to matter, uncontaminated and without distinctions. He is the principal, primeval cause of all causes and effects, in whom there is no sacrifice for food of activities, and in whom the illusory energy does not stand. I love that last sentence. Uncontaminated and without distinctions, he is the principal, primeval cause of all causes and effects, in whom there is no sacrifice for food of activities, and in whom the illusory energy does not stand. And our verse is, in such a transcendental state, there is no need of artificial control of the mind, mental speculation, or meditation, as performed by the jnanis and yogis. One gives up such processes as the heavenly King Indra forgoes the trouble of digging a well. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Purport: a poor man in want of water digs a well and undertakes the trouble of digging. Similarly, those who are poor in transcendental realization speculate on the mind or meditate by controlling the senses. But they do not know that such control of the senses and the achievement of spiritual perfection are simultaneously made possible as soon as one is factually engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Person, the Personality of Godhead. It is for this reason that the great liberated souls also desire to be associated in hearing and chanting the activities of the Lord. The example of Indra is very appropriate in this connection. King Indra of heaven is the controlling deity or demigod for arranging clouds and supplying rains in the universe. And as such, he does not have to take the trouble to dig a well for his personal water supply. For him, digging a well for a water supply is simply ludicrous. Similarly, those who are factually engaged in the loving service of the Lord have attained the ultimate goal of life, and for them there is no need of mental speculation to find out the true nature of God or His activities. Nor do such devotees have to meditate upon the imaginary or real identity of the Lord, because they are factually engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The Lord's pure devotees have already achieved the results of mental speculation and meditation. The real perfection of life, and this last sentence is pretty much how Prabhupada always would wrap up his classes. The real perfection of life is therefore to be engaged in the transcendental living service of the Lord. He would also say, so engage in this process, make your life successful. The real perfection of life is therefore to be engaged in the transcendental living service of the Lord. he would always conclude class, usually like that, really beautiful, and leave on a very positive note, seems like how he would end class. So make your life successful. And if you didn't learn anything from class, you say, oh, successful? That's what we're all trying to do. Okay, that sounds good to me. Successful. I simply follow this process. So the translation is, in such a transcendental state, there is no need of artificial control of the mind, mental speculation, or meditation, as performed by the Gyanis and Yogis. One gives up such processes as the heavenly king Indra forgoes the trouble to dig a well. And if anybody knows about digging, especially by hand, very, very, very difficult. Especially, for instance, in India, the way it used to be, I don't know what it's like now. They've got a lot of modern machinery. Things have advanced a lot, supposedly advanced. But I remember the first time I ever went there, and that was over 30 years ago. I remember in the bus and how I was shocked to see women in saris, women out there, and also, I don't know if they were slaves, what they call them, used to, I guess they still do, or servants, breaking rocks in the hot sun. Those highways, they're building those highways, and they're breaking the bigger rocks and the smaller rocks. Mataji's. And I was just like, that was a shocker to me. That just shocked me. Hard labor, obviously. So they must have been servants or slaves.
Poor people.
Very
Very,
poor.
very poor people.
So I would compare that to digging. Digging's not easy, especially, in America where you used to go into Home Depot or Lowe's, you buy a brand new shovel or something. Nice. Well, you also can buy heavy equipment, all kinds of heavy equipment, for digging. But if you're going to dig a well, you know about that, Prabhuji? The men who get down in those well diggers, sometimes the walls will fall in on them.
Yeah, and bury it.
Die. Yeah. Tragic. Okay, I'd like to refer to Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, text 26. Manchayo vicharena bhakti yogena sevate saguna samatityatam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature, and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Over and over in our process, we come across the words transcendental, or transcend, or to transcendental, as we were just talking about at the beginning of class. And that's wonderful because, especially with all that's going on in our world right now, if we focus on Krishna, well, that's the process. Transcending all of these miseries, all of this ocean of nescience, three modes of material nature, this illusion that we're in, disease, death, birth, all these things. I mean, they're real, but they're also illusory, They're real, but they're temporary. This material world does exist, but it's temporary. It's asat, But, of course, the material world does exist. It's always here. There's always need for a place for the souls to fall down to. So it does exist, But 90% of living entities are still in the spiritual realm. That's where the real part is going on, That's where we should, if we were sane, then that's where we would be yearning to go to, striving to go to. And this bhakti yoga is, what do you call it? Class A ticket? What do you call it? First class ticket. It's the first class ticket to get right into the spiritual realm, transcendental realm. And so by chanting the Mahamantra, it's such a simple process. It's meant for simple people and simple people. I mean, it's meant for all of us residing in Kali Yuga. It's a very simple process. So let me read The translation again to that Bhagavad Gita verse 14:26. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Prabhu says in the purport, this verse is a reply to Arjuna's third question. What is the means of attaining to the transcendental position? As explained before, the material world is acting under the spell of the modes of material nature. One should not be disturbed by the activities of the modes of nature. Instead of putting his consciousness into such activities, he may transfer his consciousness to Krishna activities. Krishna activities are known as Bhakti Yoga, always acting for Krishna. This includes not only Krishna, but his different plenary expansions, such as Rama and Narayana. He has innumerable expansions. One who is engaged in the service of any of the forms of Krishna or of his plenary expansions is considered to be transcendentally situated. One should also note that all the forms of Krishna are fully transcendental, blissful, full of knowledge, and eternal. Such personalities of Godhead are omnipotent and omniscient, and they possess all transcendental qualities. So if one engages himself in the service of Krishna, or his plenary expansions with unfailing determination, although these modes of material nature are very difficult to overcome, he can overcome them easily. This is already explained in the 7th chapter. I don't mean to interrupt the purport, but it's really true. I mean, if we're focusing on Prabhupada's books, we can maintain a transcendental attitude. But if we're focusing more on, listening to NPR and all the negative things that are going on in the world right now, then, we need to know about these things. But the more we fill our life up with Krishna consciousness, then the more we know, even before we even sit down to read Prabhupada's books, we know how we're going to feel. We're just going to enter into Krishna's world. We're going to become very happy simply by reading Prabhupada's books. It's the only relief. Chanting the Mahamantra, reading Prabhupada's books. This is already explained in the 7th chapter. One who surrenders unto Krishna at once surmounts the influence of the modes of material nature. To be in Krishna consciousness or in devotional service means to acquire the equality of Krishna. The Lord says that his nature is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge, and the living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme, as gold particles are part of a gold mine. Thus, the living entity's spiritual position is as good as Krishna in quality. The difference of individuality continues, otherwise there is no question of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga means that the Lord is there, the devotee is there, and the activity of exchange of love between the Lord and the devotee is there. Therefore, the individuality of two persons is present in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the individual person, otherwise there is no meaning to Bhakti Yoga. If one is not situated in the same transcendental position with the Lord, one cannot serve the Supreme Lord. To be a personal assistant to a king, one must acquire the qualifications. Thus the qualification is to become Brahman, or freed from all material contamination. It is said in the Vedic literature, from Mayapur San Brahma Etyati. One can attain the Supreme Brahman by becoming Brahman. This means that one must qualitatively become one with Brahman. By attainment of Brahman, one does not lose his eternal Brahman identity as individual soul. Prabhupada says, as a devotee, yes, we become one with the Lord, but it means proper oneness means one in purpose. Just like father and son. You may have many sons, but if they all agree with the father to work, toward his desire, what he wants to accomplish, then there's peace in the household. But if even one son goes a different route, then there's chaos. Otherwise, there's peace in the household.
Sons always don't listen, you know that. Sons always don't listen.
It's a different age.
Their father.
Sons don't listen in this age.
Any age, I don't think so.
In any age.
Yeah.
That's a good point. There were 3 things I begged my son never to get involved in, and the first thing he does is go out and do all 3 things. So so what can you do? Well, one of my brothers, we've been talking about what's going on out there right now, and I was just talking to one of my brothers, and he's got 2 little daughters, and he said that sometimes there's a lot of things you go through as a father, and you just don't know what to do sometimes. He says, but eventually you learn things, But would you say it's twice as hard to raise a daughter than it is a son? Or it's twice as hard. I'm just guessing that number. I don't know what the number is.
Not even twice, 10 times harder.
It is 10 times hard. See,
yes.
I'm just asking because I really don't know.
And God only had one.
That's heavy. Okay.
Can I say something? It's interesting that it used to be the daughter was given away at a young age into the in-law family, who would then raise her through her adolescence, and so she wasn't with her own familiar mother to rebel. She was a little shy and afraid, and the sons would just stay home, and they wouldn't be kicked out to go live their own life because they're rebelling. But nowadays everything's different.
That concept was so good. If it was only practiced through the day, it would be great,
Yeah.
But we don't do that. So now we have
So
teenage pregnancy, this, that.
Yeah.
Can I add to that? The sons were also dependent upon to take care of the mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sons are dependent on.
So the son had to be close to home to do that. So they kind of stayed home.
So that was why they'd have to obey the father, whereas nowadays you don't have to obey the father, you just have to get out of the house if you don't obey.
And especially in America, all of business is based on you come first, please yourself.
Yeah.
You're number one. Mm-hmm. And so they give in to all this and enjoy sex life. Like sex sells, everybody knows that. Enjoy your senses, and it's all about you, and all the commercials are geared that way.
Now enjoy the virus.
Enjoy the what?
Enjoy the virus. It comes with it.
I got a
virus. Enjoy everything. Now you enjoy this too.
I got a theory about that. There's various ways. The demigods don't necessarily want Elon Musk to build a stairway to Mars necessarily. You know what I'm saying? Like in the past, whenever we've tried, and demigods can send diseases easily.
Like the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Tower of Babel or Babel.
Babel.
Back on that other point, just before that, about people do what they want, the self-centeredness people are raised in. Kids are gathering at Daytona Beach for their spring break. They went there, they're going to, exchange viruses and all that stuff. And exchange viruses and genetic material in 2 different ways, and come back pregnant and contaminated with the virus, I guess. But anyway, they went, and they say, well, I'm young, so it won't bother me that much. They have no idea of their effect on other people. And people are raised to think it's just about me. I'm going to be all right, because I don't have those ailments or age, or I'm young, so I'll be all right. So I can get it, doesn't matter. Not even thinking about it.
Yes, ma'am.
There's 2 things going on here. If you really sit down and think and analyze it, this virus is attacking the young. It's also attacking the old. Now the old, it's dying, the young is spreading. They have it, they're strong, they don't even know it. So they're going around spreading to the ones who are having
Well, there's another thing, I don't know if y'all thought about this, but I'm sure the government doesn't want to mention it. But think about all the paper money that's exchanging hands
Yeah, they talk about it.
It's on money too.
online.
Money.
Yeah.
Spray
It's on the
them
money.
to get them.
But if you use your debit card,
A lot of
it's a
people.
little better. But on that note, they interviewed a young guy down in Daytona. He said, I'm not going to let the virus stop me. I'm going to have my fun.
Yeah.
He just said he's going to, Corona's not going to stop him.
See, everybody
It's all about
reacts
self.
differently, you know?
And then they interviewed a 90-year-old lady through her glass door at a house and on a telephone. And she said, when we were young, they asked us, don't do this for the community. Don't go out and participate in this activity because it's dangerous for the community. They would have cooperated. And then she said the kids these days, because of instant knowledge on the internet, you can find anything you need to know, you can find out on the internet. But you don't have wisdom with the knowledge either. So that knowledge by itself can be dangerous or it can be helpful. But wisdom makes it helpful, and you can use it correctly.
Yeah,
If you don't have wisdom, you can't get wisdom off the internet.
years ago, there used to be something that we talked about. The young people we knew were not being trained with proper coping mechanisms.
Right, that's wisdom too.
Tolerance, patience,
Character.
wisdom.
Yeah.
Comes with wisdom.
So you can have knowledge
Yeah,
about
character, right?
Yeah.
So you can have knowledge about wisdom.
Yeah. You're right.
And so, go ahead.
The other verse, it's just that the verse is on one page, and that's what confused me on this. Because actually the rest of it's on the other page. So anyway, this is also Bhagavad Gita. It's chapter 18, text 54. Brahmabhuta prasanatma no soshati na kanshati samasareshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param. In translation, one who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. So that's Krishna. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. To the impersonalist, achieving the Brahmabhuta stage, becoming one with the Absolute, is the last word. But for the personalist or pure devotee, one has to go still further to become engaged in pure devotional service. This means that one who is engaged in pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord is already in a state of liberation, called Brahmabhuta, oneness with the Absolute. Without being one with the Supreme, the Absolute, one cannot render service unto Him. In the Absolute conception, there is no difference between the served and the servitor, yet the distinction is there in a higher spiritual sense. Prabhupada did say one thing. He said, and of course this blows me out of the water completely, he says to be a Vaishnava, to properly serve, one has to be completely free from all sinful activity. But then of course he also explains other things as well. He always says, don't get discouraged. It's baby steps, He also says, one who is surrendered to Krishna, he's on a perfectional platform. So many things to encourage us. So sometimes it sounds like things like we have to be completely perfect. Well, we trust in Krishna. We do our best. We chant the Maha Mantra. We take Srila Prabhupada's books. There's 9 processes of devotional service. Prabhupada says even if we take part in one, we can master one of them, and we can attain perfection, And the purport continues, in the material concept of life, when one works for sense gratification, there is misery. But in the absolute world, when one engaged in pure devotional service, there is no misery. The devotee in Krishna consciousness has nothing to lament or desire. Since God is full, a living entity who is engaged in God's service in Krishna consciousness becomes also full in himself. He is just like a river cleansed of all dirty water, because a pure devotee has no thought other than Krishna, he is naturally always joyful. Prabhupada says, because a pure devotee has no thought other than Krishna, he is naturally always joyful. He does not lament for any material loss or gain, because he is full in service of the Lord. He has no desire for material enjoyment, because he knows that every living entity is a fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and therefore eternally a servant. He does not see in the material world someone as higher and someone as lower. Higher and lower are positions are ephemeral, and a devotee who has nothing to do with the ephemeral appearances or disappearances, for him stone and gold are equal value. This is the Brahmabhuta stage, and this stage is attained very easily by the pure devotee. In that stage of existence, the idea of becoming one with the Supreme Brahman and annihilating one's individuality becomes hellish, and the idea of attaining the heavenly kingdom becomes phantasmagoria, and the senses are like broken serpent's teeth. As there is no fear of a serpent with broken teeth, so there is no fear from the senses when they are automatically controlled. The world is miserable for the materially infected person, but for a devotee, the entire world is as good as Vaikuntha, or the spiritual sky. The highest personality in this material universe is no more significant than an ant for a devotee. Such a stage can be achieved by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, who preached pure devotional service in this age. So, I did want to mention that, has everybody seen Lord Chaitanya this month? You know, that beautiful painting?
Yeah.
It's the most beautiful painting of Lord Chaitanya I've ever seen.
How did
And he's on the mango trees right there, you know, you can see.
the calendar.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the calendar. I'm going to Mother Kasi today, by the way. But yeah, he's so beautiful, and you can really see how tall he is. Just how 7 foot 3 inches tall, and that mango tree grew instantly, and it ripened. He ate a few, and then he passed them out to his devotees. And Asuka told me that type of mango in India has no pit, no seed inside. Special kind of mango.
It's an existing type? Wow.
That's what Asuka
I
said.
thought it was a special one-time treat.
But he was looking at the shape of it, you know, and he said that is a special kind of mango. That's a good question. I guess you'd have to talk to the artist. Like, did you just take that from a present-day mango? And, you know, like, did you pick the best mango, the one without the seed? You know what I mean? But I know one thing. When I was in India, I had the best mango I've ever eaten. I was there during mango season. And I know they have mango everything. Mango shakes, mango pies, mango, probably cakes even, but mango salads, you know, mango, you name it.
What month was that?
What's that?
What month was that, May?
I don't even know. You know, I never get to go to India, so.
No, it's right. No, he wants what month? That's this month, isn't it?
What month did the mangoes come out?
Oh. I don't know what
No,
month.
remember?
I don't remember because
I think it's like
it was
May.
over 30 years ago.
It's so hot there, too.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I was only there once, so I don't really remember what time of the year it was. I only got to be there for like 1 month, you know.
Also, the fruits ripen after the rainy season and in the autumn, so I don't know. I don't understand the season. Some things happen one time, other time I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a simple brahmachari. I didn't have like a lot of. I wasn't hanging out with sannyasis necessarily. I hung out with this other brahmachari who was just like me, you know what I mean? Probably been in the movement a year or two or something like that. So it's not like I got the inside scoop. You know, I mean, I think I've told you this story before, but I wasn't collecting much. It was Kansas City, Missouri, and it was really bad at that point, $30-40 a day in the parking lots. So it was really bad. I wasn't collecting much, and my temple president told me, well, you don't need that much money when you go to India. I was worried, you know, I might need some lunch money. And I only went with $7.
Oh, that's
$7. That was it.
India?
I went to India, it was $7.
How long was that?
Can you imagine how bad I had it? I had it really
You
bad.
could have called me, I would have sent you one.
Well, you know, that's just how it was.
Years ago.
And of course, I learned later I really lost faith in that. But, well, I learned later. I just lost faith in them. I just did, you know. Anyway, I wasn't collected much. I guess I thought I really didn't deserve much. But I mean, you know, I got real sick in Vrindavan, and then I went to Mayapur, and I was sicker, you know. And the first night in Mayapur, we didn't have enough cow dung burning or something, you know, because we didn't know how much you got to be burning to last the whole night.
The mosquitoes?
Oh, my face! I don't know if I ever told you this. It looked like I had the measles when I woke up.
Oh my gosh.
I looked in the mirror, I was like, oh my God, my face was measles. The mosquitoes just tore my
No
face up.
mosquito nets?
Oh,
Yeah.
nothing.
That happened.
Simple brahmacharis, you feel like nobody's looking out for you, you know?
Yeah.
That happened to,
We heard this recently from somebody else.
Yeah, that's still happening.
Was that
It's
him?
still happening there.
Really?
Yeah,
no,
still mosquitoes.
Maharaj.
Mosquitoes?
Yeah,
Still
still
mosquitoes.
there.
Yeah, I believe that, yeah.
Yeah, I know there were lots of mosquitoes
Journey
when I
home.
was there.
Journey
They had
home.
nets. Huh?
The journey home, he got eaten up.
Tell us
Yeah.
about the train trip from Dham to Mayapur.
Oh, no.
You must have been like in cattle car, told us you had was
Did you-
$7.
Were you on top of the train?
Yeah, how did you get around
The
at all?
hanging on the
The
pole.
freeway?
Devotees, they got me around. I mean, when I got into Delhi and we landed, I mean, they looked out for me, at least one of them did, at least said, don't go over there where those taxi guys are, they'll take advantage of you. So Krishna was looking out for me, is what it was
Yeah.
amounting to. Yeah, because, you know, I was like one of those little boys, native boys, had the belly was swelled up like this. The whole time I was in Mayapur, I couldn't eat anything. A little bit of fruit each day, that was it, you know. And I could have died, Yeah.
Oh, I sent that picture out to a few people who have cell phones.
What picture is it?
Is it Lord Chaitanya or Krishna picking mangoes?
Oh,
Did you get it?
that is a beautiful
It's in the
painting.
calendar.
Yeah.
It's on your phone.
That's a
Not
beautiful.
I have
Chaitanya.
service.
You got it?
I have service.
You don't have service.
Not in here, I gotta get
Go outside.
Oh, okay.
Did anybody else want to say anything about the transcendental states?
Krishna,
Transcendental.
when you said that you weren't collecting anything, what came to my mind, I had those days too when I first joined, but now I realize that I read this quote from Prabhupada meditation book, where how the Lord is in everyone's heart, and if the Lord did not dictate to that person, oh, you give some kind of donation, you give some kind of thing, then it's not going to happen. So it's not up to me
Yeah.
or the person who's doing it, but that transaction between the super soul and the heart. And it's reassuring, you know, it's like I have been through that days where I would be crying out to Prabhupada, please send me just one person,
Yeah.
just one person.
Well, I'll never forget that one day. It was Presley's mansion, and you know, Trip Maharaj was there, and it was horrible weather, and like there wasn't hardly anybody coming to Graceland. But he told us in the morning, he was telling us about being on the transcendental level. You know, says you can accomplish what you want to accomplish, and it was horrible weather, really rainy. It was just our middle of winter time. And I think the whole day, Graceland wasn't even open that day, which they're always open practically. For some reason that day they weren't open.
They probably closed now.
Maybe they're closing Sundays. I don't know what it was, but anyway. They're probably closed now, you think?
Yeah.
What's going on? Oh, yeah. Yeah, think about that. But anyway, so I said, okay, I believe him. And I have faith, right? So the whole day, what I did was, as the day went on, I opened up more and more to the people. I figured I've only got maybe 20 couples that might come today if I'm lucky. And I just started surrendering as the day went on. How am I going to... He gave me a quota of, on that day, $385 seemed like a lot. Because most days it's a lot. I could collect a lot more than, won't get into that. But anyway, so I thought, how am I going to do it on this day? You know what I mean? Anyway, so I started sharing my problem with the people. I said, we're on a marathon and I'm never going to reach my goal. And I've still got this much to go, I started sharing my problem with them. And they opened up and people started giving more. And I got past that. Instead of 385, it ended up like 420, whatever. I was so happy, so thrilled, you know, because it was destitute. It was really a rough day. I didn't even know if I had 20 chances, to tell you the truth, but they just weren't coming on that day. And I just remember being so thankful, you know, when I finally surrendered. And I mean, if you're desperate enough, you know what I mean? Of course, you pray. It was the first day I ever went on a second time, the very first time. I went out in the parking lot, and I thought, yeah, I can do this, I can do this. I got out there until I got out there and realized, I can't do this. I can't beg for people, you know. Anyway, so, and I'd only been like a week or two in the movement, but I wanted to get out there and help out, you know, collect. Because, you know, you got to feed these devotees, you got to distribute books, you got to raise money, transportation, education, whatever. Food distribution, you know, all these things. So anyway, yeah, I couldn't do it. I realized I couldn't do it, but finally I did. I guess they left me out there. So finally I just started praying. And I didn't have a real big relationship with Srila Prabhupada yet, but I tried. And the more, of course, you surrender to your spiritual master, the more your relationship develops. And I don't know how much I knew about Krishna, but I love the deities. I thought they were just so cute. Little Radha Damodar, you know, the brass ones about this tall or so. Yeah. When you get up close to them, look at them, they're just so beautiful. So I was fortunate enough that they were there in the very beginning. You know, they were on the altar. First time I saw any deities. They were sitting right in front of Shri Radha Radhikanta in New Orleans, and they were right there also. And so I just thought, wow, they're so beautiful. They must be God, you know. So anyway, I thought, well, I'm going to be so lucky. I get to travel on the bus, right? Little did I know, a few months later, I had to go out in a van away from the deities. So maybe once a month I might get to see the deities. But I was in hog heaven with the deities right there on the bus. I said, this is great. You can go on and on like this. You see the deities every day. You go outside, pick any flowers you can find, bring them in. Go out and collect for them, you know. You know what I mean? But then it got harder because then you go out in a van and you've got no deities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the beginning especially, you know.
Yeah. When I was new, and then we had marathons. It seemed like marathons always like harmed me a little bit because they were so away from the temple. I needed a balance.
Yeah.
And there was only a couple big marathons that participated in, but it seemed like they took me away from the temple because I had to give up my service and go traveling. It was just like stickers and beads, and that was it. And I came back, and I thought, well, I just pick up where I left off, and it was hard. It was really hard to recover and pick up where I left off because I needed that connection, you know. So I know what you mean.
I know what you mean too. When you're out there and all you got is stickers and did you say beads?
Stickers and beads. You know, you don't have any. I mean, if you're really transcendental, of course, your beads are the holy name. They contain everything.
Oh, you're chanting beads.
Yeah.
Because they're around New Orleans, it's all beads, you know.
Oh, no. Stickers and beads. Well, it's you have your japa and you have your stickers, and that's it. You know, you don't have anything else to call on to help you with that japa and with your stickers.
Yeah.
So it was hard for me. I didn't like marathons.
Can you imagine the first day I was at Graceland, and what's worse than just stickers to me? When they give the American flags on a toothpick, it's like, you know, it's nice you have an American flag to them. It's so tiny, it's on a toothpick, you know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and then we would regularly go out for the day, you know, but I would take little books with me because we could do lots. And then we had more and more pressure, or winter time we'd have to go in the malls up north and we couldn't carry the books around. Or then more and more sent to events where you can't carry the books. And like he kept depriving me of that, which made it a life for me. You know, it got harder and harder.
Yeah.
And then you hats, and you're supposed to do hats. And I could relate. You know, I just wanted stickers and books.
Did I ever tell you how I became an airport devotee?
Mm-hmm.
You worked in the airport too?
Another example of using your desire, right? Well, what happened was we were a traveling van party, but we pulled in to get something that was shipped to us through this little airport that only had one terminal. And I asked my band leader, could I, distribute a little inside here? I said, sure, why not? So I did, and of course we didn't have fancy clothes, we didn't have suits on. And I did, and it was only for maybe an hour or two. But since that point, whenever they asked me at a different temple, I said, oh yeah, I'm an airport distributor. Yeah, I'm not kidding. And that's how I got in. That's how I got in with the big boys. St. Louis, LAX, it's several different airports actually. Memphis. Memphis was only a two-man. They had two ends to it. One person worked down here, one person worked down there. And then when other big devotees come, well, I have to move out.
Yeah.
They take over the airport. But of course, once I started working at Graceland, the big guys were coming to work with me. They would come and want to learn from me. I'm thinking I'm not worthy, but they never would take over my position. I was happy. They wouldn't take it over. They never took it over. They come out, work a day maybe, and then they'd go back to the airport. But they never took over my position, So I was real happy, about that.
That's so unique.
Yeah.
Graceland.
Yeah.
You thought of that?
Well, there was a
Somebody
big
Krishna
demon.
gave you?
Well, the devotees had tried before.
Oh.
My band leader, we go by there every day, and all those people lined up.
Yeah.
I said, how come we're not working that? Well, I said, we tried, but we just can't crack it. Because, they come up together.
Oh,
Together.
two
It's like they're going to talk to one another, and they might start not liking you, So what I do is I throw the lady carnation, long stem carnation.
Oh, from a
And she's
distance,
going to be
like
happy.
here.
She's happy. And then I tell him a joke, Shake hands with the guy. Of course, he's walking toward me. He's jealous. And he said, why is she throwing my wife, a girlfriend, a flower? Before he can get to me, so he shake hands with the guy. I shook Elvis's hand. And right about the time he's going to shake my hand, said, and I haven't washed it since. And that really cracks him up, though, That cracks him up. And of course, we're making fun, Like, I'm a big super fan. Once I shook Elvis's hand, I haven't washed it for years, Anyway, yeah, and I made friends with the bodyguard, Elvis's bodyguards.
Mm-hmm.
I had to fight to keep devotees from offending those bodyguards. You know what I mean? One or two devotees might come along and say something, and I knew that it would upset Elvis's bodyguards, and I knew it. And and in front of the bodyguards, I'd get on their case, like, don't you ever talk again about Elvis. You know what I mean?
So Elvis was still in the...
No, he'd already passed.
Well, how do you have bodyguards?
They kept him on, I guess.
They kept him on to pay,
House?
so they could pay. Oh, they probably guard the house then.
And they have to bring out his like the three-wheelers, there's like two of them, I think. They're like dune buggies, but they were three-wheelers, I think.
Yeah, like a
Ride him down the road, and the other vehicles they had to, keep them running, keep them operating. And they were really devoted to Elvis, And his fans were really devoted too,
That was a show, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a show, all right. He really put on a show. And one time there was a banner that the ladies spread out. Elvis is king. He stopped that big concert. He said there's only one king, and that's Jesus Christ, Yeah, he stopped the concert. So there's only one king. Jesus Christ. Okay, Prabhuji, any other comments? Anybody want to make?
Thank you very much.
We always have so much fun, though.
Yeah.
Thank you for your association, devotees. And I guess, actually, who it was who said that Prabhupada said that millions of people will be coming to us in the future? You know who said that?
Who said that? Prabhupada said it?
I think
Yeah.
did Prabhupada.
Rameswar.
Rameshwar quoted it.
Huh?
Rameshwar quoted it.
He quoted?
But I don't know, did he directly hear it from Prabhupada?
Huh?
Did he directly hear that from Prabhupada?
Well, that's the way I heard it, But, of course, I was telling Faye, millions, we can't even handle a dozen people right now.
Yeah. I don't know how that's going to work.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I'll go saw some of the devotees, the entire parampara. Shishi Goni Tai, Shishi Radha Radha Kanta, Goish Prabhupada Ki Jai. Goish Mother Kanasi Ki Jai.